This is a journey. Greetings and salutations, people of the YouTube Nation. You are now listening to the premier voice for entertainment and information. So, over the course of about a week, Real Madrid managed to lose their Spanish Supercopa against Barcelona. Then they subsequently sacked their manager, Xabi Alonso, whom they spent about a year courting. Then they crashed out of the Copa del Rey against Albacete, a second division side. And finally, as of yesterday, January 17th, 2026, the supporters whipped out the handkerchiefs. If you don't know what that means, essentially in Spanish football, whenever the supporters, wave the handkerchiefs, that usually means that they want regime change, meaning that they want Florentino Perez, the current president, out, right? And I'm not going to lie. As you can see, I am a Barcelona supporter. I'm not going to lie too. So this is hilarious to me, right? I'm enjoying the salty Madridista tears a whole lot. And I'm making this video not to laugh at, partly like to laugh at Real Madrid, but also because this is a cautionary tale, right? And this is why I like to study history, because like they say, if you don't learn from history, you are doomed to repeat it. And I mention this because about 6 years ago, I believe, Roberto Carlos, that famous Brazilian player who used to play for Real Madrid, he used to have some wild shots that, would curve out and then go back in, something that would make blue lock seem almost possible, right?
ミスキック
なんだあの軌道急激に打ちながら外に逃げてく茶色シュートか
But I digress, right? So Roberto Carlos, and his massive thighs, gave an interview to Spanish newspaper El Confidencial about 6 years ago. In this interview, right, and I'm going to link it below so you could take a look at it, he detailed how during that time there was a lot of famous players such as, Ronaldo, Nazario, Beckham, Owen, Figo, whom he famously signed from Barcelona. There were a lot of superstars in that squad, and they had a lot of unsavory habits, right? And that is why the managers did not really last long, or any actual coach that wanted to do something with the squad and not just let them do whatever, right? So Roberto Carlos spoke about one thing that they used to do is that they used to bring a lot of wine and beer to the dressing room and drink it, throughout the day. So that's something that they used to do. And one of the coaches, I think it was Camacho or Vanderlei Luxemburgo, one of the two, right? I think it was Luxemburgo, actually. He told them that this is not conduct becoming of a professional, right? You shouldn't be drinking beer and wine, midday during practice or right before practice or after practice. That was ridiculous, right? So long story short, the players down tools and Luxemburgo was out shortly after. And I believe that something similar happened before, right, with Camacho, who is actually one of the coaches who lasted, I think, he lasted about the least amount of time, if I remember correctly. I think I'm going to put the, banner up so I could take a look at it. So, yeah, he lasted about 3 months. And the thing about Camacho is that he wanted the players to come train earlier, I think about 7:45 or something like that in the morning. And the players, of course, were not having it because they were used to getting to the training facilities at about 10:45, right? And long story short, he did not last neither. I think he resigned a few weeks into the season, right? So that's what happened. So Camacho resigned. Vanderlei Luxemburgo, he was sacked. And this is during a time that Barcelona was in the ascendancy, much like today, right? So Florentino Perez, back then, much like today, was famous for signing superstar players. Like I said before, he signed Beckham, Figo, Ronaldo. He did not care about coach input or manager input. He thought that the manager or coach was just there to like, give the lineup and not do much else, right? So this is why recently it was revealed that Xabi Alonso actually wanted to sign a midfielder, and Florentino Perez told him no, right? You're gonna have to make do with what you have, buddy. So good luck with that, right? And we all saw the results. So the thing is that I say all that to mean that Florentino Perez actually ended up resigning shortly after. I think it was in February of 2006, right after those famous applauses for Ronaldinho during the Clásico of the 2005 2006 season in the Bernabeu, right? So now we're seeing how history is repeating itself. Now, Barcelona again is in the ascendancy, and Real Madrid, or actually Florentino Perez, is doing the exact same thing that he did, back in 2004 to 2005. Now, I'm not implying that the likes of Mbappe are bringing, the finest champagne from France, and that Xabi Alonso actually told them, no, you can't be drinking wine, during training hours. However, I am heavily implying that the players definitely down tools and had a part in the sacking of Xabi Alonso, because I don't think that anybody who ever watched Xabi Alonso in Bayer Leverkusen with his, fast attacking play and high press would say that this Real Madrid side is anything like what he did at Bayer Leverkusen, right? So he has definitely had to adapt and acquiesce to whatever the players at Real Madrid want. There were some rumblings. I think it was Fede Valverde or somebody within the club was, talking behind Xabi Alonso's back saying, oh, who does he think he is? Who the hell does he think he is? The new Pep Guardiola, because he wanted them to press high and play a particular, attractive style of football. But the players just did not want that, right? So that is what ended up happening. Xabi Alonso subsequently had to adapt. And then, I thought it was funny that I think it's Mbappe or somebody along those lines said that, they wanted to play attacking football, but how can you play attacking football if you refuse to press? Anyway, I digress, right? So Xabi Alonso ended up getting sacked, and Alvaro Arbeloa has now been appointed as first team coach. And I post on Reddit usually, and sometimes I get into arguments about this type of stuff. And I pointed out that it was disappointing that Real Madrid has spent about 400 million euros, I believe, over the past 5 years, compared to Barcelona, who has spent about 4 million euros in the transfer market over that same period. And we've absolutely wiped the floor with Real Madrid, even when Xavi was, at the helm, because unfortunately Xavi is treated as a joke these days, much like Xabi Alonso. And I will never forget this, right? Because apparently, football supporters have a bad short-term memory. When Xavi came in, Barcelona was languishing in mid-table mediocrity. We were 12th, we were ninth during the 12th match day of the 2021-2022 season, right? I did not see Pep Guardiola, I did not see Luis Enrique, I did not see even Flick, wanting to come help out the club. But Xavi, he stepped up, right? And in the 102 games before Xavi of the league, we were averaging 78.2 points per 38 match days, which is how long a league lasts, right? And then in the 102 games with him, we were averaging 85 points per 38 match days, which actually 85 points. I remember a couple of years ago, people were saying that it was a bad season, but 85 points wouldn't have won us the league last year. I digress, right? So, yes, the point being that Xavi did an excellent job, which he does not get credit for. We could have easily been the next Manchester United, and we all know that train wreck, right? So going back to the point that I was making, this is not Xabi Alonso's fault, right? Like I was saying, anybody who saw him play at Bayer Leverkusen saw the type of football that he wanted to play. However, he was not allowed to play the type of football he wanted because the players, did not want to listen, and neither did Florentino Perez because, like we said, he does not really care about the coaches. He does not really care about their input. How are you going to sign a coach and then not listen to the type of player that he wants in order to execute the type of football that he wants to do, right? And famously, actually, a lot of people are saying online that Xabi Alonso was the coach that Florentino Perez wanted. That's not it. He famously, well, not famously, but he actually wanted Klopp, right? But Klopp refused to go anywhere near that hot mess of a club. And we saw, the message that he had to say about Real Madrid after Xabi Alonso was unceremoniously sacked. And I don't think he's going to go anywhere near that poison chalice anytime soon, right? Unless Florentino Perez resigns, which he might do actually. The guy is almost 80 years old, and he's seeing how Barcelona again is on the ascendancy. So it wouldn't surprise me if they don't win the league or Champions League this year that he would just walk out, right? You heard it here first. Now, the point that I was trying to make earlier is that, when I was watching the game last week, the Spanish Supercopa, I was watching the game and I was, just remember seeing how pathetic Real Madrid's approach to the game was. They were playing like Getafe. Usually I like to post on Reddit, and I was talking about the game last weekend, right? And I was saying that Real Madrid's approach to the game was pathetic, especially considering that they've outspent Barcelona by a significant amount. They've spent about 400 million in the transfer market within the last 5 years compared to Barcelona, who spent 4 million. We've had to make do with academy graduates and free signings for the most part, with the occasional, $50 million signing here and there. And yes, we've lucked out because Lamine Yamal has come through. Also, Kubarsi has come through, Gavi, and a couple of other youth academy graduates. But it's not every day or every year that you're going to get a world class player from your academy, right? So now, I like I said, I thought that was pathetic, and people were saying, "Oh, what do you expect?" Because Real Madrid has had injuries, and they lack Tony Kroos, and I just thought that was really hilarious because I don't know if football supporters they have like selective memory. I think that it is that I think that's it, but also they just fit whatever narrative they want in order to convince themselves about something. The thing about it is that I actually watch Real Madrid play a lot, and they always do this, right? It's not like under Ancelotti with Kroos and Modric, they were playing, expansive, fast-flowing football, and they were like the 2020 version of Bayern Munich. No. When was it? 2024, right? They were playing Manchester City, and they parked the bus against Man City in the return leg of the Champions League. I think they ended up tying the game, and then Real Madrid went on to win on penalties, but Kroos was there that day, and I remember that he got subbed in for that Modric subbed in for Tony Kroos, and then they were still, parking the bus against Man City. They also did that a couple of years before, and I remember in 2022, they famously, I think it was about 7 shots on target that Real Madrid received compared to the one that Liverpool actually received on goal. And that was the one shot on target by Vinicius, who actually ended up winning the game, right? But it was actually maddening to seeing, how all those shots were being saved by Courtois. During all these years, it's been mostly Courtois and Inshallah against opposition of the same caliber. With Kroos, with Modric. So I don't know why people are saying that all of a sudden, because, they have a lot of injuries and they haven't signed anybody to replace Kroos or Modric in the past season that, oh, all of a sudden is because we don't have, any creative midfielders, or, is because Xabi Alonso was there. Yeah, mind you, it is true that Real Madrid does need creative midfielders, but also this is a problem of their own making, right? Xabi Alonso told them that they needed midfielders, but Florentino Perez did not listen, right? And also, even when they had, like I said before, when they had Kroos, Modric, they were still playing like Getafe, you're sparking the buzz and kicking players. So I don't know what people are talking about, right? They have selective memory. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say. And once again, I go by the name of Omar Aponare, aka Aponar, aka your poor leftist teacher. I know you have a lot of choices when it comes to airtime, and thank you for flying Aponar tonight. Peace.